Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Parry, and today I wanted to talk about Logic Pro's Vintage Console EQ. Alright, so for those who don't know, this is a vintage style EQ that you can find stock in Logic Pro if you just go to your effects EQ area, whatever you call it. Go over here and you can add it right here, EQ, vintage EQ. You got these three to choose from. So this is the first one, the vintage console EQ. I plan to do videos on all of these to show y'all how they operate. But this vintage console EQ is basically an emulation of the Neve 1073 EQ, which is a very well-known EQ that's been around, analog EQ that's been around for a while. And so Logic Pro basically did their own version of that. It's fairly simple EQ. It's pretty easy to use once you kind of learn what all these things do. And so I thought I'd kind of break it down for y'all today. So let's just hop right into it. Oh, by the way, this EQ is good for things like vocals, acoustic bass guitar, drums, even mixing and mastering. So it's a pretty versatile EQ that you can use for a lot of things. And one of the nice things about it is that because it is easy, simple to use, it's kind of hard to screw up and get good sounds out of it. So, and this is Logic's version, so let's jump into it. So obviously on the left we got the N button. This just basically turns the EQ circuits on and off, kind of similar to the power button here. On the left part here, we get into the low cut area. So this is your on and off button, and then down here you get the low cut knob. So you can choose basically between 50 to 300 hertz, and you can low cut basically anything in between. As you can see, it tells you what you're cutting over here, and you can choose cut anything. Or so low cut, some people also call it a high pass filter. Same thing. And you can do whatever you want here. So you can type in a number if you wanted to. That's that, right? Next, getting into the low gain section. Obviously, again, this is the button to turn on or off the section. Here you have the low gain. So I believe for this section, the low gain, you get 16 dB plus or minus. So I guess it says 20 here. I was reading the manual for this, and it said the knob would give you about 16 dB plus or minus, but maybe it was off. Regardless, though, this is where you control the gain, so you can either turn something down or turn something up. And down here in the low frequency, this is where you basically choose the sound that you want to turn up or turn down. So, for example, if you wanted to kind of maybe boost or change a kick or something, or some type of bass sound, you would choose something like 110 hertz, and then you would listen to it, and then you would, if you want to cut it, you would go left to the minus. If you want to boost that sound, you just increase the gain over here for this. So this down here is basically choosing the area you want to attack, and then up here is choosing whether you want to take the sound out or increase it, basically. So now we move on to the mid gain, and this down here says -20, -20. I know on that Apple website it says, where was it? You get plus minus 18 dB gain over here, or at least for the gain range. That's what the website said. I don't know. But this is where you control your middle frequencies, so similar to down here where you choose your frequencies down here. And keep in mind, this is in kilohertz down here. This one's in hertz. So for kilohertz, you can basically choose all the way from 360 to 72K. And so you can pick your frequency, and then you can turn it down, turn it up with the gain. You can turn that on and off over here. And then over here in your high gain section, this is already set. It's preset to 12K, or at least I should say it's fixed to that range. So you can either, turn the 12K range up if you want to, brighten hi-hats or brighten the high end of something, turn it up. If you want to turn down, obviously turn down. So, and this is obviously the button that turns this section on or off. So this section over here pretty simple, pretty easy. It's not too hard to understand once you really look at it and understand what's going on. I would say the hardest part is really making sure you know where things lie, where a kick may lie in the frequency range or spectrum, where a snare may lie, where hi-hats lie. Just making sure you understand where each instrument lies in the frequency spectrum, or where vocals lie or whatnot. That's probably the big thing whenever you're using these type of EQs. Now moving on to the far right, we got the output section. So this is the drive section. When you open this plugin, by default, it starts at 4, but you can turn it down to 0 if you want. And this red knob is basically just a saturation knob. Helps give whatever you're EQing more saturation, more character, and stuff like that. Underneath that, you got the output model, which by default is set at smooth. And this smooth setting is specifically for the console EQ that we're in. But if you wanted to, there are other output models that you can choose, which basically the output model is basically a preamp model. And so if you wanted more of a preamp model of the graphic EQ, it's labeled punchy, you get more punchy sound. Then you got silky for the tube EQ. And these output models try to mimic these things. Or you can turn them all off, and then you wouldn't have to worry about that. But we would keep it as smooth probably most of the time. For phase, you got natural and linear. And when I was opening this up, I didn't really know what these meant, so I had to look it up. And apparently for natural phase, that kind of, it basically is another term or word for analog phase, and it basically tries to replicate the analog sound. It does introduce a little bit of latency, not as much as the linear phase, but that's kind of the best descriptor. It replicates the analog sound. Where you got linear, this is introduces a higher amount of latency or delay. It tries to avoid phase distortion, and it's ideal for things like mastering, using a linear EQ for that. Apparently, it is ideal for reducing smearing and painting sonic transparency in mastering situations. So if you're using this EQ on your mastering bus, then you'd probably want to switch it over to linear. In a lot of other cases, you might just want to leave it on natural to get that analog sound. And then at the bottom here, you got volume. Obviously you can take dB out, add dB, or whatnot. That's kind of self-explanatory there. So that does it for explaining each of the functions on here. Now I'm going to show you kind of how it sounds and how we can manipulate the sound a little bit. So I just got a simple drum loop here, so I'll just play it without the EQ enabled. I'm just going to recall the default here. Now it's on. And I'm going to turn all of these off except for the low cut, and we'll see what this does. So if we want to use the low cut or high pass filter, I'll just kind of mess with this knob and have this playing and let y'all hear it. So as you can see, obviously it cuts the lows. So this knob's pretty easy and simple to use. So that's what that does. Next, low gain. We're going to choose a frequency. Actually, I'm going to boost it all the way up. Or I'm going to boost the low gain all the way up, just so y'all can see kind of what it does to the differences between the frequencies and stuff. So I'm going to keep it, let's say, at 0 for now. And we'll keep it at 110 to start. I'm going to boost it. As you can see, the kick gets a lot stronger. Now we're going to reduce it. A lot less bassy. Alright, now we're going to keep this all the way up, just so y'all can really easily hear it. And we're going to shift through the different frequencies. Now we're affecting 35. So y'all can see how turning up the gain a lot can affect these different frequencies in different ways. So pretty simple. Now we're gonna see the mid gain, and we're gonna see what this sounds like. So right now it's automatically set to 3200 hertz. Turns up a lot of the mid range. Turns down the mid range. Now we're gonna turn it up again. Now we're boosting a lot of those high ends, or middle highs, or whatever. So again, very similar to the low gain section over here. And now we get to the high gain section. Again, this is set at 12K, and this is for boosting or cutting the high end. Very nice. Now I'm going to do a quick setting on here with all of these, and then I'm going to mess with the drive in a second so y'all can hear that. Say I turn this up a little bit. Cool. Now I'm going to increase the drive or saturation just so y'all can hear what that sounds like. Cool. Now I'm going to change these different models so y'all can hear the differences between the three. Let's start off. So punchy, something more punchy. And then I'll switch between the natural and linear. You probably won't hear a huge difference between the two, but fairly similar. So again, one last time, this is modeled after the Neve 1073. If y'all want me to do a comparison between this and the plug-in version of the 1073, I got that. Maybe I can do that. Y'all let me know if that's something you'd want to see. But again, this is good for putting on vocals, acoustic basic guitars, drums like I have it here now, or if you want to use it for mastering, you can too. Fairly versatile EQ. It's fairly easy to use. It's pretty simple. Not a lot of buttons, not a lot of things to change. And if you're more beginner learning mixing, mastering, and all that stuff, these type of analog EQs are pretty good because the limitation that you have kind of helps you out. You don't have a million options. You just got a few knobs you can turn, and it's kind of hard to screw up, right? You just mess around with them until things sound nice, and then you're good to go, So, but again, I think that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching. If you like this, give it a like. Let me know in the comments, did I miss anything? If you want to see me do the other vintage EQs that Logic has, let me know, or any other plugins I can do. But I had fun to make this video. Hope you had fun watching, and I'll see you next time. Anyways, peace.